everybody. Welcome to another Thriving Thursday. I'm so excited to be here. I'm Carla. I'm a former management consultant who, after almost 12 years in the corporate world, put on the brakes to ensure that I was living a life with intention and a life that was designed by me. Today, I'm a career and life coach. I also live in 84 square feet. It is very tiny, and I live with few things but a lot of adventure. And through Thriving Thursdays, my mission is to share stories and reflections for better living and to hopefully also help you design your life with intention. Today, I'm broadcasting from the beautiful state of Idaho. And I have to say that Idaho is not one of those states that has been at the top of my bucket list. I don't think I've heard other people say the same thing, about their bucket list, Idaho being like the place that you have to go. But I have to say that it has been just absolutely breathtaking, and I'm so happy that we're here. You can see the mountains that I have in the background, and we've been camping next to a really beautiful little creek that creates a lot of just very soothing background to fall asleep to at night. And being so close to nature, and especially next to flowing water today is very fitting for the topic that I want to bring up and discuss, which is the relationship of that we have as human beings to attachments. And I'm talking about attachments of all kinds, right? We as human beings have attachments that are very natural to things, to people, to memories, to places, even attachments to our own sense of identity. And when you think of nature, the truth of the matter is that nature just is, right? The water that is flowing has no attachment to the rocks that are underneath, and the leaves that are flowing in the wind are just flowing. They're just um, being. And nature is like that. It goes and it flows without the need for control, without a need for doing. Rather, it just is. It's without judgment, it's without need, and it's beautiful and peaceful. And as human beings, we have also the ability to be more like that. But the reality is too that as attachments, it's natural that we have different kinds of attachments. It's an inevitable part of who we are. And there is a lot of beauty in the attachments that we have. So, for example, I would not want to give up the attachments that I have to my family, to my friends, because they are such a core part of who I am, right? Um, but the reality is that there are also some attachments that may hold us back from living with ease and being able to flow and just be versus do. For example, when we think about our attachments to people, it's one thing to be attached to our loved ones because we want to be with them, because they bring us joy, because we love them. And it's another to be attached to ideals or expectations that we have of those people, of how they should behave, perhaps, or how they should show their love to us, which can ultimately lead to disappointment, to resentment, to frustration if those expectations are not met. When we think about our attachment to things, which happens to be an area of my life that I've had a lot of experience with as I've downsized drastically, it's one thing to be attached to an item because it brings us joy, because it represents memories that are positive and make us feel good. And it's another thing to be attached to things when it starts to become counterproductive, when we're overwhelmed by them. We have more things than we actually know that we even have or use, or we have things that just don't serve us. They don't bring memory. They're not practical, and we start to feel overwhelmed by them. And it also, having items that bring up painful memories is something to be aware of. When we can't let go of something that brings us pain or brings memories that we're trying to move past, we're trying to move forward, kind of like that old sweatshirt that you had from your boyfriend in high school that you couldn't let go of. There's one particular attachment that I've struggled with and that I'm still working through, and I've had it my entire life. And that is my attachment to outcomes. That's the one that I struggle with the most. I'm someone that is very driven, and so because of just that nature, that way that I am, I'm always looking ahead. I'm always planning for the next thing. I always have all these goals. And while I know that having goals and having a vision and moving towards something is a good thing, it's absolutely something that I support. I've also learned that it's important for us to not be so fixated on that one goal to be to come to fruition in the exact way that we envision, but rather to be open, right? Like work towards a goal, but be open to the possibilities of perhaps a different path that might open up along the way, right? Stay open to surprises, and otherwise we may miss out on the fun. I'll give you an example. Before I met my husband, I used to put so much pressure on myself to plan the perfect trip, right? A trip for fun on vacation. I would plan out all the details of the trip with the expectation that on this trip I would have so much fun. And what I would often find was that the trip didn't always turn out the way that I had envisioned, right? Maybe I didn't exactly check off all the items on my itinerary. And rather than feel grateful for that and for the new experiences that I did have, I found that I would feel disappointed at the end of the trip. And so as I met my husband and we dated and we got married over the years, and he's someone that's very goal oriented, but someone that is also very good at kind of like letting things go and just enjoying the now. And he taught me um, to to leave room for surprises, yes, let's plan a trip and maybe plan out where we're going to stay and plan out a few things that we want to do and certainly make sure that you have a place to sleep. But don't be so fixated on ensuring that the trip goes exactly a certain way or that these things must happen or you must feel these different things, because then you miss out on the opportunity to have new experiences that you didn't expect, that you hadn't planned for. So that's one thing that I've learned a lot through travel, is to plan enough to have a destination in mind, kind of like with goals, but don't be so fixated on how it should unfold. Rather, stay open to the possibilities, stay open to the surprises that will come along the way. I also struggle a lot with doing things for the plain fun of it. And instead, I'm always attached to an outcome, like a result that needs to come out of what I'm doing. My sister in law recently pointed out this about me, and I must say that I was a little bit jarred when she brought it up, and I even felt a little defensive. And I now realize that it was because she was right. There was a lot of truth in what she was saying, and that was, she observed with a lot of kindness that I dedicated time to things that where I always had to have a purpose. I was always doing something for a reason. And she asked me if there was anything in my life that I did simply for the pleasure of it, simply for the joy. For example, she plays piano. And while she's quite good, she doesn't do it necessarily because that's yeah, there's my mom. Hey, Jan. Yeah, my sister-in-law doesn't necessarily play the piano just because she wants to be a professional piano player. Rather, she does it for the joy. And because my mom is on, I must give a call out to the fact that she's always tried to get me to learn how to knit. I'll never forget her saying, you need to learn how to knit. You need to learn how to just do something that, yeah, maybe you're knitting and you're making a sweater and that's the end of it, but also do it just for the pleasure of it. And that's something that I have struggled with a lot, right? Like for me to spend time on something, I must have an outcome. I must have a goal. There must be something that I'm getting out of it. I love to do yoga, for example, and I have done yoga because I must learn how to practice mindfulness, which is kind of contradictory to what I'm saying, right? I must do yoga because I got to work on my balance, or I must hike more because I need to strengthen my stamina, or become a stronger hiker, or read a book because I must learn something from it. And the, the reality is that I've done that a lot throughout my life. I've done things with these outcomes that I expect to get. I do things because I feel that I must do them or that I need to do them versus doing things because I want to do them. And there's a very different energy there when you think about, and language is powerful when you think of I must, I need, there's weight there, right? Versus I want to. because it brings me joy, or because simply it is, because you simply feel like doing it in the moment. So even though this is an area that I'm still growing in, this idea of being attached to outcomes, I will share three steps or three things that I've started to do a little bit more that have helped me make more peace with these attachments that I have to outcomes and start to let them go a little bit more so I can be more present, be more in the moment. And the first one is be curious. Be curious about your attachments. Observe them, seek to understand them, become more conscious of what they are. And that might entail a conversation with someone, like it did for me with my sister-in-law, right? Where somebody is observing what attachments they see in you. Perhaps it's a little more difficult to see that within yourself. But the idea here is to be curious and be non-judgmental, right? Don't judge yourself over those attachments. Rather, be curious about them. Where are they coming from? How much truth is there in that? How are they supporting you? How are they taking energy away from you? What do you want to do with those attachments? Do you want to let them go? Do you want to keep them? Do they serve you in ways that matter to you? So if you observe and you are just taking the time to be curious about them, you'll start to release some of the energy that we oftentimes tie to attachments, especially those that aren't serving us. So that's the first one. Be curious about your attachments. The second step is to feel gratitude. And perhaps you might remember when the Marie Kondo craze was going on, about downsizing. One of the things that I thought was so kooky about her method, but I now so appreciate, is this idea of giving thanks to things, right? In her case, she was helping people downsize their closets or homes, and she would say, just you're gonna get rid of something, give it give it thanks and recognize how it has served you. And I now love that so much because it's so true. When you feel gratitude for how attachments have helped you and how they've shaped you to who you are, you're allowing yourself the room to perhaps move on from them, having honored what they have given you. So I don't think that her step of giving thanks to your things is kooky. I think that it's actually pretty powerful, and that may be things, that may be experiences, memories, that are your own attachments, right? So that's the second. Feel gratitude for those attachments. And the third is to take a small step. Instead of going back to non-judgment, instead of focusing on what you're not doing and how your attachments are holding you back and focusing on that, focus on the things that you are doing. Just by becoming aware of your judgments, you're taking a step forward in reshaping the relationship that you want to have with those attachments. So for me, for example, after having that conversation with my sister-in-law, the one small thing that I'm now doing, I haven't changed everything. My nature is still to want to do things for an outcome, but I have done one small thing, and that is to make sure that I take a walk every morning. Not for fitness, simply because it brings me pleasure, simply because it's time that I can just be at peace. I can enjoy and really appreciate the nature around me, and perhaps be with my husband, with my dogs. There's really nothing that I have to do in that moment or achieve except to simply be. So think about that one small step that you can take in terms of how you want to move forward with those attachments, especially if they're standing in your way from reaching, a version of you that you're working on. So I'll leave you with just one small thought, and this is from a book that other coaches, some of my fellow coaches will recognize, those that went through my program, and that is, life is a perfect adventure, a game that cannot be won or lost, only played. When people open up to the mysteries available in life, they become empowered to experience all there is. Instead of trying to control things and create what must or what should happen, it is far more enjoyable to experience the excitement of not knowing what might happen. There is no need to try to control anything, be free from need. Without expectations, there cannot be disappointments. Ironically, once you give up the need to control, you gain ultimate control. And life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. And that last one is from our dear old friend, Forrest Gump. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this was useful, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Happy Thriving Thursday, everybody. Goodbye.